Welcome back. You're watching We're on Pulse with me, Raisha Sehgal. Lots lined up for you on the show. Let's get you started with the headlines. Iranian state television claims Tehran has obtained a trove of strategic and sensitive Israeli intelligence, including files related to Israel's nuclear facilities and defense plans. Does not state further details. Russia and Ukraine trade charges. Both sides blame each other for putting on hold prisoner exchanges and accepting bodies. The claims and counterclaims come in the backdrop of Russia's heaviest drone attack on Ukraine.
И благодаря всем родным и близким, которые нас поддерживали, верили.
Gaza Civil Defense Agency says Israeli forces killed at least 36 Palestinians, 6 of them in recent shooting incident near a US-backed aid distribution center. Multiple European countries lower growth forecasts. Germany, the Netherlands and Italy downgrade predictions for 2025 amid US tariffs. Londoners march against austerity cuts ahead of the government's spending review next week. Demonstrators chant, tax the rich, stop the cuts. Iran says at least 30 nationals died while performing the Hajj pilgrimage amid rising temperatures in the holy cities in Saudi Arabia. Joining us on the show tonight is Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis, military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Welcome to We're on, Colonel Davis. I want to first start up with asking you that Russia has launched one of its biggest attack on Ukraine since its full-scale invasion a few years back. And it also comes at a time when Trump has clearly said that Ukraine gave reasons to Putin to bomb them. Your assessment of the situation, and where does all of this leave peace talks at this point of time?
I think that this is just a continuation. You talked about these strikes on Thursday night which went all across the country, and then the overnight shots against Kharkiv city, which was the biggest that had been of the war on the single city there. And I think you're just going to continue seeing this. When we saw Putin respond to his bombers being attacked on the same days that he had a civilian train attacked in southern Russia, another bridge that was knocked out in the southern part of the country, when the Kursk bridge was again attacked underwater, I think that he finally had just reached a point where he's going to take the gloves off, I think. And I think that what you're seeing in the anger that he had when he addressed the nation was very unusual for him. And so we've seen now 2 straight nights of significant bombing, and I doubt that that's the end of it. That's all coming simultaneous with increased capacity on the front lines, especially in the Sumy area and in the Kupiansk and Liman area on the eastern front. And you ask how this is going to play out towards peace talk. I think Russia has clearly indicated there's not going to be a peace negotiations. They have said that if you don't take this 12-point plan that they gave at Istanbul last week, which frankly is pretty much terms of surrender, then their ambassador to the United Nations said then they will win on the battlefield. And that looks like exactly what they're doing.
Colonel Davis, you do speak of how there's no end to the attacks from Russia and Ukraine, and now Russia has said that there's going to be no peace negotiations. That's what you say. I will seek your assessment on the fact that Trump has said that he hopes no nuclear attack from Russia. At this point of time, how much influence does US actually have on Russia? Because for the past few months, we have been seeing the US president urging the hostilities to stop, but there has hardly been any change on the battlefield.
Well, I would go so far as to say there hadn't been any change. You haven't seen any change from Volodymyr Zelensky. He has obviously continued and, in fact, has accelerated his attacks into Russian territory. You don't see any change in the Western European countries. They still talk about they want more sanctions. They want to build up combat power. They want to keep supporting Ukraine. And then on the Russian side, they have continued without stop their offensive operations on the front line and are now accelerating their air campaign. So if you're just looking at the reaction of it, the truth is the U.S. president has had no impact on any of this. The question is going to be, is he going to be willing to walk away from this and completely leave it up to the two sides to figure out, along with Europe, or is he going to do what Lindsey Graham wants, which is to put in sanctions, whatever? That's not going to have any impact on the battlefield, though. So I think that we need to be sober-minded that there's very little that the American president can do in this.
Right, Colonel Davis, thanks very much for joining us here on WION and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you very much.
Now, for more than 24 hours, the news of Trump's fallout with Elon Musk has grabbed eyeballs from across the world. But what is at the center of this very public fallout between two powerful men in American business and politics? This rift began on the 27th of May, when Musk made his first critical remark on record about Trump's big, beautiful bill. Musk in a media interview said that he was disappointed with the bill and that the massive spending increases deficit, which undermines the work of DOGE. In the days that followed, Musk had called the bill a disgusting abomination and urged Americans to kill the bill via social media posts. The issue that Elon Musk has singled out in this bill is that the sum total of its key tax cut provisions and decrease in government spending does not amount to a decrease in deficit. In fact, on the contrary, it increases the deficit, thereby requiring the administration to push the debt ceiling higher. To simplify this in numbers, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the proposed tax cuts in Trump's budget add up to a sum total of $3.7 trillion. While this may be good news for taxpayers, it means money out of the government coffers. Now, spending cuts proposed in the bill save approximately $1.3 trillion of government money. But in net effect of the two clauses, the bill overall will add $2.5 trillion to the U.S. deficit. However, the White House only partially accepts the CBO forecast and rejects the claim on increase in deficit. The official website put out a statement calling one part of the CBO calculations a hoax. The White House statement says that the Congressional Budget Office does not take into consideration the increased revenues that will flow in with increased reciprocal tariffs.
For what you are, a terrorist organization, ICE, out of Paramount. You are not welcome here. Stay away from the gate.
They didn't even leave, only some people. They're not even little by little.
Nearly 5 months into President Donald Trump's second term in office, and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has reached 100,000 arrests, according to internal data obtained by CBS News. ICE agents made more than 2,000 arrests on both Tuesday and Wednesday this week, which is much higher than the daily average of 660 arrests during the first 100 days of Trump's return to office. The number of daily arrests has more than tripled compared to Biden's final year. ICE averaged about 300 arrests per day during President Biden's last year in office. Trump aide Stephen Miller has said the agency needs to arrest more people living in the country illegally.
Under President Trump's leadership, we are looking to set a goal of a minimum of 3,000 arrests for ICE every day. And President Trump is going to keep pushing to get that number up higher each and every single day so we can get all of the Biden illegals that were flooded into our country for 4 years out of our country.
ICE agents have been ramping up arrests significantly under the Trump administration. There's been a major shift in enforcement philosophy under Trump, who promised mass deportations. Trump is pushing for mass enforcement, targeting nearly anyone without legal status, regardless of how long they've been in the U.S. or whether they've committed a crime. ICE is arresting migrants and asylum seekers at court hearings and check-in appointments, and also conducting workplace raids. Federal immigration agents are going after those who were in the U.S. illegally and have criminal records. And they're also detaining non-criminal migrants who were living in the U.S. without legal immigration status. Last weekend, ICE arrested Marcelo Gomes da Silva, an 18-year-old high school student in Milford, Massachusetts, who was on his way to volleyball practice when he was detained. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey denounced da Silva's detainment and called for his release.
ICE admits that Marcelo doesn't have a criminal background. He's not even a threat. He wasn't even their target. They admit that. So they need to let him go. Marcelo belongs in school, not in a detention center.
A federal immigration judge Thursday ordered da Silva to be released from ICE detention on bail.
Sudan lacks clean water, hygiene and medical personnel. As conditions worsen in the war-torn country, the population is now also facing a rapidly spreading cholera outbreak. The epicenter is in the capital, Khartoum.
The promiscuity, the lack of water, the lack of hygiene, and the lack of access to healthcare, all that contributed to really increase the cholera and complicate to put the disease under control, the outbreak under control.
The rapid spread of the disease is also due to population movements. Thousands of residents who fled fighting have returned to their homes in recent weeks. But in the capital, the sanitation system has collapsed. Since we returned here in order to find drinking water, there was no other way except bringing water from the river. We use trucks to bring water. We fill it into containers or barrels. We leave it for a while, then put it in water pots and drink it. After 2 or 3 months of war, the water supply stopped. Electricity cuts off and then returns, but water stopped completely. It is beyond any struggle, and at the moment there's a lot of suffering. Case numbers in Khartoum are currently surpassing 1,000 a day, and health workers fear that the situation will worsen as the disease continues to spread in the country.
The idea of a large truck barrelling down the highway, carrying a heavy load and without a driver's hands on the steering wheel may seem strange and even frightening to some. Well, in China, that is exactly what's now being tested. Along certain routes, driverless lorries are being allowed to operate under supervision. And when it comes to smaller delivery vans, they're already sharing the streets with human-controlled vehicles. Our China correspondent Stephen McDonnell reports.
These trucks are driving on a public road without a human being behind the wheel. Driverless transport company Pony AI was given official permission to film a video showing just what its technology can do. Now it's running a pilot program, making deliveries from Beijing to Tianjin port, which the company showed to the BBC.
So here we have one of these self-driving trucks. From the outside it looks like a normal truck. Let's have a look. Hey, 师傅你好.
The normal runs involve a safety driver, ready to take over in an emergency.
So here we are, we're racing down the freeway, and I've got to say it's pretty weird because you look over, there's the driver, his hands are off the steering wheel.
Of course, I was a bit scared the first time in an autonomous truck, but after spending a lot of time testing them, I think they are pretty good and safe.
I asked how the truck's sensors work.
This is our main sensor. It uses lasers which can reach a long way. There are also cameras which can track in multiple directions to detect blind spots.
These test vehicles are running daily limited routes. But elsewhere, much smaller trucks have already been cleared to operate freely on suburban streets. In the eastern city of Hefei, Rhino AI is taking parcels from big distribution hubs run by courier companies to neighbourhood stations, where scooter drivers then drop packages to the front door. We're told delivery companies can hire 3 robot vans for the same cost as 1 driver's salary.
The driverless vehicle industry is growing really quickly. Apart from express delivery companies, our customers include supermarkets, hospitals, and universities.
Worldwide, much has to be done to convince the public that it's safe to allow powerful, heavy trucks on normal streets without a driver. But in China, at least, analysts say this could be widespread within years rather than decades. Stephen McDonald, BBC News, Beijing.
This is a Chinese commercial made by artificial intelligence, garnering millions of views, calling President Trump the tariff man superhero, making a mockery of Trump's tariff policies. How are Trump's tariffs being perceived in Chinese media? We'll take a look at some of the videos being shared in the country and the messaging within. There you have President Trump in a Superman suit. His superpower, according to the cartoon, the tariffs he's wielding on everything and everybody. The cartoon showcasing it as a tactic that is only hurting the U.S., which in turn helps China.
Liberation Day promised us the stars. Let's carrots kill our sheep, Chinese pies.
This video was produced by China's state-run English language news agency, painting a picture of higher prices in the U.S. as a direct result of high tariffs on cheap Chinese products.
Your taxi truck, your taxi tire. It was burning, your dumpster fire.
Ultimately ending with the AI voice-generated singer thanking President Trump for his tariffs and what the video portrays as a wrecked U.S. economy because of it.
Thanks for the tariffs, and miss you, babe.
You might be watching these AI-generated videos and finding them a little cringy, but they weren't made to be top-quality videos. Their purpose is the messaging within. Take this next AI-generated Chinese video produced by another state-run media agency. This one of a robot named Tariff.
Aggressive tariffs implementing now. I can see the consequences of my actions, Dr. Mallory. The trade wars, the unrest, the people who suffer, and the retaliation.
The AI video goes on to have the robot representing Trump's tariffs talk about the destruction he's creating, and the only way to end global escalations is to self-destruct, or in other words, end the tariffs.
And now choose death to end the harm.
Please, don't do this.
Goodbye, Dr. Mallory.
State-run media means these agencies are either owned, operated, or significantly influenced by the Chinese Communist Party. And with tensions between China and the U.S. escalating over tariffs, it makes sense for this to be the messaging across Chinese state media. So where do things stand between the U.S. and China on tariffs and trade talks? After Trump's Liberation Day, China saw a 145% tariff on their goods, and China responded with its own 125% tariff on American exports into their country. But last month, the two sides agreed on a 90-day tariff truce while talks continued. But apparently those talks have since stalled. That's according to White House Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. In the early hours Wednesday morning, Trump wrote on Truth Social, "I like President Xi of China, always have and always will, but he is very tough and extremely hard to make a deal with." SAN's Alan Judd has a timeline of U.S.-China trade talks since Liberation Day in a write-up that you can find on our website, san.com. Learn more in Alan's story about what's now being dubbed supply chain warfare in the latest escalation between the two sides by downloading the Strait.
And 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck northern Chile with the epicenter located near the coast of the Atacama region. The tremor was experienced in multiple towns, with Copapeo reporting the strongest effects. In a moment recorded on camera, a live interview was in progress at Radio Madero in Copapeo. Carolina Toja, presidential pre-contestant and former Minister of the Interior, was speaking about her campaign when the studio suddenly started to shake. The discussion was immediately halted as Toja and the journalist quickly exited the studio for safety. The earthquake led to power outages affecting over 20,000 residents. In commercial areas, shoppers evacuated as glass panels and other materials became dislodged during the tremors. A video footage from the region showed hardware stores and steel structures shaking, with debris falling from rooftops. No casualties are reported. Officials said that the earthquake was not big enough to trigger a tsunami along the Chilean coast. Chilean President Gabriel Boric has said that his administration is in contact with the regional officials to ensure required protocols. Chile is prone to frequent seismic activity because of its location. The country is located along the Pacific Ring of Fire. It is a 25,000-mile zone encircling the Pacific Ocean where unstable tectonic plates meet and interact.
May 2025 will be remembered not for the opening of new war fronts or trade deals, but for nature's unrelenting siege. Across continents, climate extremes erupted like dominoes. Floods swallowed towns, fires painted skies red, and heat waves shattered centuries-old records. From urban chaos in Mumbai to torched valleys in South Korea, no border was spared. The World Meteorological Organization warned that the next 5 years will see temperatures hover near record highs. An omen we ignored is now made real. Disaster costs are soaring past $2.3 trillion annually. And yet, the real price? Lives disrupted, futures scorched. Our next report tracks the chaos region by region.
May 2025 will be remembered not for wars, elections, or diplomatic standoffs, but for something far more elemental. Because while leaders across the globe sparred over policies and borders, it was the earth that made the loudest statement. This month, climate change wasn't the backdrop, it was the headline. The World Meteorological Organization warned that the next 5 years would likely remain at or near record high temperatures, raising the risk of even more extreme weather. Surprised? Well, don't be, because the signs are already here. And the disaster spiraled so fast and so furious that they gave no time to think and no time for action. According to the UNDRR, total global disaster-related costs, including indirect and ecological impacts, have now surpassed $2.3 trillion annually. And in May, the bill only grew heavier. In India's northeast, the flood situation escalated dramatically. By June 3rd, over 6,300,000 people across 21 districts in the eastern state of Assam were affected as relentless rains and landslides claimed 47 lives across 8 states. In fact, Mizoram alone reported over 500 landslip events in just 1 week. Elsewhere in the country, cities drowned. Mumbai, before the monsoon's official arrival, was submerged once more. The newly built metro station flooded, traffic collapsed, and outrage followed. Bengaluru too gasped underwater. Lakes meant to buffer floods have long been paved over, and this time nature retaliated. In Delhi, the past met the future. The wettest May since 1901, thunder and hailstorms and flight disruptions. A similar crisis also unfolded across the border. Pakistan endured record heat waves, then devastating windstorms that killed over a dozen and injured hundreds. Meanwhile, the UAE broke its own record of the hottest May, not once but twice. Swehan scorched at 51.6 degrees Celsius, reminding the vulnerability even wealthy desert nations face. Across Europe, May fractured expectations. Northern and western regions dried up, while southern zones from Spain to Greece saw their shares of heat waves and wildfires. In France, a deadly storm brought hail the size of ping-pong balls and killed at least one person near Toulouse. Across the Atlantic, the United States was no safer. A May 16th tornado outbreak tore through Kentucky, Missouri, and Virginia, leaving 28 dead. In the central Mississippi River Valley, rivers swelled and streets vanished underwater. And in neighboring Canada, wildfires burned across 1.4 million hectares, forcing mass evacuations and sending smoke into United States cities like New York and even across the Atlantic to Europe, triggering air quality alerts. Down south, Australia faced its own reckoning. From May 19th to the 23rd, torrential rains lashed New South Wales, flooding towns like Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour, leaving behind devastation across coastlines and farmlands. The month was one of contrasts, blazing heat in one region, deluges in another. It wasn't just a random sequence of natural events, it was the climate tipping scale, the system breaking rhythm. The 2025 Global Assessment Report confirmed what many feared. Disasters are not isolated, they are interconnected, intensified, and increasingly inevitable. The planet didn't whisper this May, it screamed. But will the world listen? Because June has just begun.